Taking time to rest is ideal, and doing so in a paradise-like location may seem incredible. However, depending on the destination, this choice might not be the best idea, and the trip could have a fatal ending. Stay tuned. Sharks in Sharm El Sheikh, Egypt, seem to have developed a taste for human flesh and have viciously attacked several tourists. A 2-year-old boy, enjoying a vacation with his family at Disney, is distracted while playing near a lake. His parents, watching from a distance, see a crocodile lunge at him, bite his head, and drag him away. An amateur athlete chooses New Caledonia as a destination to relax. However, this place has a troubling history when it comes to its waters. All this and more coming up next. In November 2010, in Egypt, Olga Martchenko and her daughter Yelena were enjoying their vacation in Sharm El Sheikh, a city located at the southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula. This destination attracts many tourists, especially Russians and Ukrainians, who seek to escape the cold climate of their countries and enjoy the local warmth. Sharm El Sheikh is known for its beaches and resorts, some of them quite luxurious, offering a perfect environment for relaxation and entertainment. Additionally, the region's waters are rich and diverse, providing a fascinating marine spectacle. Boat tours and diving sessions to observe fish and coral reefs are popular activities for adventurers. Today, warnings and signs alert visitors to certain dangers, and resort staff, along with lifeguards, educate swimmers about the main threat: sharks. However, in 2010, the situation was very different. There were no warnings or alerts about the risks. A series of shark attacks terrified tourists, leading to a major transformation in how safety measures were handled. Olga, 48 years old, and her daughter were on vacation, exploring a new country. They enjoyed the beautiful landscapes and the peaceful atmosphere. The two had a great relationship and shared a love for the water. Most of their time was spent at the beach, enjoying the sea and the sunny weather. The experience seemed perfect. Mother and daughter were happy to be together, making the most of their favorite activities. However, something was about to happen that would ruin their next few days. One morning, while sitting on the sand, they chatted about where they would have lunch later. After deciding, they chose to take a few more dips in the sea before following through with their plans. While swimming, Olga and Yelena drifted slightly away from the shore and from each other. In a moment of relaxation, Olga began to float, completely at ease. Her eyes were fixed on the sky, unaware of what was happening around her. With her arms and legs stretched out, she suddenly felt something strange brush against her left arm. At first, she thought she had bumped into a rock, but to her shock, it moved. Snapping out of her relaxed state, Olga quickly looked to see what it was. To her horror, she realized she had just touched nothing less than a shark. The beast's teeth sank into Olga's arm, shaking it violently. Instinctively, she tried to pull away, but that only made things worse. With the shark's teeth deeply embedded, her hand and part of her forearm, below the elbow, were instantly torn off. Blood gushed into the water, creating a terrifying scene. Covered in her own blood, Olga began screaming desperately for help. Her eyes scanned the area, fearing that something might have happened to Yelena. Fortunately, Yelena was on a nearby pier, safe, but she had witnessed the entire attack. Panicked, the young woman also screamed for help as she watched helplessly. Despite the pain and shock, Olga swam as best she could toward the pier where Yelena was, but the shark followed her, delivering more bites. Each attack weakened Olga further, and it seemed she would never escape. Lifeguards rushed to the scene after hearing the screams and spotted the horrifying sight in the water. Olga was sinking and resurfacing in a desperate fight for survival. Fortunately, she was wearing swim fins, which helped her reach the pier. The lifeguards finally managed to pull her out of the water. They quickly began first aid as an ambulance approached. Olga was in critical condition, facing an imminent risk of death due to shock and severe blood loss. Upon spotting the shark, the lifeguards identified it as a white-tipped shark, a relatively small species, but no less dangerous. During the attack, the beast tore off part of Olga's left buttock, in addition to her hand and part of her arm. The attack was brutal, and it was astonishing that she was still alive. Olga, along with her daughter, was transported by ambulance to a hospital in Cairo. What remained of her arm was amputated, and emergency surgery was performed on her buttock to try to contain the damage. When Olga was finally able to speak weakly to Yelena, the young woman told local media that her mother could only lie on her stomach and that there was a deep hole in her buttock, so large that part of her spinal cord was visible. Yelena explained that Olga would need further surgeries to properly cover the wound. Unfortunately, mother and daughter were unable to return to Russia immediately, as Olga was severely weakened and could barely stand. Deeply shaken, Yelena regretted taking the trip. Traumatized, she vowed never to return to the place. Despite everything, it was widely agreed that if Olga hadn't been wearing swim fins, she likely wouldn't have survived. Yelena blamed the local authorities for not warning about the dangers of the area. Later, she discovered she wasn't alone. On the same day as Olga's attack, 70-year-old Lyudmila Stolyarova was at the beach with her husband. The two were chatting peacefully under a sunshade. With only a few days left before the end of their trip, they wanted to make the most of their time before returning to Russia. Lyudmila suggested going for a swim, but her husband declined, encouraging her to go alone. Shortly after, witnesses watched in horror as the elderly woman was attacked. A shark grabbed her by the leg and tried to drag her underwater. Lifeguards in a boat managed to reach her and bring her to the pier, but her leg was completely torn apart. As firefighters evacuated the beach, Lyudmila was rushed into surgery at the same hospital as Olga. She lost a hand and a leg due to the severity of her injuries. That same day, 2 more attacks occurred. A 54-year-old Russian man, Yevgeny Trishkin, suffered severe injuries to one of his legs, resulting in the need for a partial amputation. Viktor Kolyi, a 46-year-old Ukrainian, was also attacked. Although he suffered leg injuries, his condition did not require hospitalization. The attacks on Yevgeny and Viktor were witnessed from the shore, causing widespread panic. Later, in December 2010, a German woman was killed by a shark while snorkeling in shallow waters near the coast. These incidents mark some of the most tragic and terrifying days in the history of Sharm El Sheikh's beaches, reinforcing the urgent need for strict safety measures. Experts pointed to unusual factors contributing to the wave of attacks in 2010, including overfishing, the dumping of sheep carcasses into the sea during the Islamic festival of Eid al-Adha, and shark feeding by diving companies. Other potential factors included elevated water temperatures and the depletion of natural prey. On December 9, 2010, an international team concluded that 2 species were responsible for the attacks: the shortfin mako shark and the oceanic whitetip shark. In June 2016, in Florida, Matt and Melissa Graves from Elkhorn, Nebraska, decided to take their children to Disney World in Orlando. They were certain it would be one of the best family trips they would ever have together. On June 14th, the family visited Seven Seas Lagoon, an artificial lake within the park that offered activities such as boating and fishing during the day. The area was bustling with families and young children moving about. The lagoon had no barriers or fences restricting access to the water, only a sign that read "No swimming." It was common for children to play near the water, often under the distant supervision of their parents. At around 8:40 p.m., Matt and Melissa were getting ready to watch an outdoor movie with their children. The screening was set to take place on a large outdoor screen on a grassy area near the lagoon, as part of the park's entertainment offerings. Even though they knew they would return to their hotel late that night, the couple thought it was worth it. After all, they were on vacation. At 9 p.m., the movie began, and Matt and Melissa settled in to watch. As expected, young children didn't stay seated for long. Many ended up playing or interacting with each other. 2-year-old Lane and his slightly older sister grabbed a bucket and a shovel and went to play near the lagoon. They remained within their parents' line of sight. Excited, Lane jumped and laughed as he filled his bucket with water and ran back to continue playing. From time to time, Matt and Melissa would walk over to interact with their children. After some time, the movie had ended, and the couple decided it was time to leave. However, Lane didn't want to go. They gave in and decided to stay a little longer. Once again, Lane grabbed his bucket and went to play in the lagoon. With the water reaching just below his knees, he lowered the bucket to fill it. Matt and Melissa watched from a distance. Suddenly, without any warning, the worst happened. Lane, who had been smiling and happy just moments before, was attacked by an alligator that bit him and dragged him into the water, just a few meters away from his parents. Matt ran so fast that within seconds, he was right beside the animal. He saw the reptile with its jaws nearly closed around his son's head. Desperate, he shoved his hands into the alligator's mouth, trying with all his strength to pry it open. Already in deeper water, the reptile used its body weight to thrash, managing to break free from Matt's grip. Another alligator appeared and followed the first one as they both disappeared into the water, taking Lane with them. Matt, his hands injured, stood frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. The family watched helplessly as Lane disappeared on a night that was meant to be filled with fun and joy. Matt plunged into the water, continuing to search for his son, while Melissa, in a panic, ran to do the same. Both refused to leave the lagoon without Lane. All the commotion caught the attention of several people who approached to understand what was happening. It was nighttime, and the murky, brown water made it difficult to see. Still, Matt did not stop searching, extending his hands into the water, hoping to find any sign of his son. But all he could grasp were handfuls of sand and mud. Melissa, in a state of hysteria, screamed desperately while running to find help. Alligators are incredibly stealthy predators and masters of ambush, capable of remaining motionless for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. At only 2 years old, Lane was helpless and an easy target. Although alligators are generally less aggressive than crocodiles, this does not mean they are not dangerous. Their bite is incredibly strong, and when they attack, they rarely let go of their prey. Witnesses looked on in horror at the couple's despair. It was a heartbreaking scene. Matt still held hope of finding Lane alive, but that hope was not realized. As soon as the lifeguards, police, and rescue teams arrived, boats and rafts began to search the lagoon. A task force of more than 50 people was mobilized to find the boy. The search continued throughout the night. The day after the attack, divers located Lane's body submerged just a few meters from where he had been attacked. It seemed the alligator had abandoned him not far from where Matt had desperately searched. The body was retrieved and handed over to the parents. Wildlife officers reported that although Lane had been bitten on the neck and head, the cause of death was drowning, a result of being dragged by the animal. His body was intact, with only a few bite marks. When Matt jumped into the water in an attempt to rescue his son, it's possible he startled the alligator, causing it to release Lane shortly after moving away. Unfortunately, Matt was unable to reach him in time. After the tragedy, 6 alligators from the lagoon were captured and euthanized. The animals were sent to a lab, where examinations revealed their stomachs were emptier than expected for predators of this type, suggesting hunger might have been the cause of the attack. Lane Graves was the victim of a predatory attack and did not provoke the animal in any way. In response to the incident, Disney World installed signs warning about the presence of alligators and erected barriers to prevent people from accessing the water. The Graves family was simply enjoying their vacation, while the alligator acted according to its nature. On February 19, 2023, in Noumea, New Caledonia, Australian Chris Davis was having an enjoyable day. He was a strong and resilient man. In addition to being a software engineer, Davis was also an experienced triathlete. Over the years, he had represented Australia in several events and championships. Davis was in New Caledonia for simple reasons: rest and vacation. New Caledonia may not be as popular as the Bahamas or Hawaii, but that doesn't mean the place lacks its own unique beauty and landscapes. The archipelago is known for its beautiful beaches and diverse marine life. Sydney, on Australia's east coast, is often used as a starting point to reach Noumea, the capital of New Caledonia. Like many other Australians, Davis chose this location as a leisure destination. In February 2023, on a Sunday, Davis was in Noumea, enjoying the day. He was staying at the Chateau Royal Beach, right in front of the sea. The weather was beautiful, and the beaches were more crowded than usual. People were taking advantage of the great weather to have fun, practicing snorkeling, diving, surfing, among other activities. In a place like this, it's not at all difficult to forget your problems and worries. In fact, that's the main goal. However, New Caledonia has a concerning history when it comes to its waters. It ranks 13th in the world for the total number of shark attacks. Furthermore, the Chateau Royal Beach had already been the scene of a nearly fatal shark attack. On January 29, 2023, a 49-year-old woman entered the water and was violently attacked by the beast. She lost one hand and part of her leg, but survived. A few days later, a surfer was also attacked but escaped unscathed. This means that even though the beaches are considered safe for swimmers, they're not 100% safe, far from it. Still, on February 19th, Davis entered the water to practice swimming. He was about 150 meters from the beach, near his hotel. As an experienced athlete, he had resilience and technique, but these qualities proved useless for what was about to happen. According to reports, in the blink of an eye, the man was pulled underwater, struggled, and then floated on the surface. Those in the water could observe more clearly what had just occurred. People on the beach watched in horror as the scene unfolded. Eyewitnesses stated that the attack lasted no longer than 10 seconds. A guest at the nearby Chateau Royal Hotel, who witnessed the aftermath of the attack, described the scene. He said that it had happened very close to the beach, and the victim was face down in the water when the jet ski arrived. He mentioned there was blood everywhere, and those on the sand could look out at the sea and see the chaos. As soon as the jet skis reached the man, his body was pulled from the water. He had terrible injuries. The man had been bitten 3 times on his right leg and both arms. One bite on his thigh extended 37 centimeters from his hip to his knee, causing a deep wound. After being placed on the sand, paramedics sprang into action and began a resuscitation effort. However, after 40 minutes with no success, he was declared dead right there at the scene. The beaches in the area were immediately closed, and a search for the responsible shark was launched. Sonia Lagarde, the mayor of Noumea, prohibited people from entering the beaches. In addition, several warning signs and danger notices were placed to alert tourists. During the search for the shark, Chris's autopsy revealed that he had no chance of surviving. Each injury he sustained had the potential to be fatal. 3 days after the tragic event, a photo of a large tiger shark was shared on social media. The animal was deemed responsible for the attack and was immediately dealt with. It was sent back to his family in Australia. In a statement to the press, the family expressed their grief over the loss. "We are deeply saddened by the loss of our beloved husband and father, Chris Davis. He leaves behind his wife and 3 adult children, who expressed their sincere gratitude to the authorities of New Caledonia for their efforts in treating him, and to the governments of both Australia and New Caledonia for their help in bringing him back to Australia," they said. These tragic incidents serve as a stark reminder of how life is unpredictable and how everything can change in a matter of seconds. In October 2002, 23-year-old Isabel Von Jordan was traveling with her 21-year-old sister, Valerie, to Australia. The 2 sisters were university students from Heidelberg, Germany, taking a break for a vacation. They wanted to spend some time together in a different country. Initially, the 2 Germans went to Bali, an island in Indonesia. There, they met some friends at a bar called Sari Club, a relaxed place that attracted many young people and tourists. The girls drank, danced, and chatted, all in a carefree atmosphere. When they decided to leave, they said their goodbyes and headed out. However, they had no idea the disaster was about to strike. A car parked near the club was loaded with a bomb. In a terrorist attack, the bomb exploded, killing 202 people and injuring 209 others. When the girls heard the news, they were in shock and frightened. They had been at that club. Bali became so chaotic that the young women decided to leave. Isabel and Valerie were not present at the time of the explosion, but they knew some of the people who were there and got injured. Thinking about their friends, they decided to fly to Darwin, Australia, where they were receiving treatment, to visit them. As soon as they arrived, they went straight to the hospital to offer their support. Seeing the aftermath of the disaster, Isabel and Valerie realized how lucky they were to have escaped unharmed. With all the stress from the event, the German sisters decided to take a trip to relax. On the morning of October 20th, 2002, Isabel and Valerie set off for Kakadu National Park as part of a tour package arranged by Gondwana Adventure Tours and Expeditions. But the sisters weren't alone. The entire group consisted of 9 tourists, including Isabel and Valerie. The guide was 46-year-old Glenn Rubles. Kakadu National Park, one of the largest in Australia, is filled with mangroves, swamps, lakes, and rivers. It is globally recognized for its vast diversity of wildlife, making it a truly interesting place to connect with nature. Besides wanting to forget the bombing incident, Isabel and Valerie thought that exploring the Australian outback was a good way to enjoy the rest of their vacation. For 2 days, everything went well. They toured and camped in complete peace and harmony with the group. On October 22nd, the tourists camped at a place called Sandy Billabong in the heart of Kakadu. They had dinner around 9 p.m., and by 10:30 p.m., they began asking Glenn, the guide, if there was a place nearby where they could swim. Glenn then suggested they go to Nerlandy Creek, about 1.5 kilometers from the campsite. Isabel, Valerie, and the other tourists became excited and headed to the location. However, upon arrival, they noticed warning signs, causing concern. They warned about the presence of crocodiles in the water. Nevertheless, Glenn dismissed it as nonsense and assured everyone that it was safe. He said the crocodiles nearby were harmless and that the native people had been swimming there for years. When Glenn used his flashlight to illuminate the water surface and show that there was nothing, the travelers finally felt reassured. By around 11 p.m., Isabel, Valerie, and the others entered the river. Glenn left them alone to speak with another guide from a nearby group. As they floated in the calm, peaceful water, the campers chatted and laughed. Since it was night and the lighting was poor, no one noticed a large crocodile slowly approaching. In a swift movement, the beast emerged, grabbing Isabel. It bit her and pulled her into the depths. The girl tried to fight back and free herself, but obviously, she couldn't. She was no match for the animal's powerful jaws. Isabel only managed to scream before disappearing. Initially, the group thought it was a prank. However, when the young woman didn't return, they realized something terrible had just happened. Outside the water, they grabbed their flashlights and pointed them at the river in search of Isabel. But what they saw horrified them. A huge crocodile was swimming, and there was no sign of her. One of the tourists ran to find Glenn and met him on his way back with the other guide. At Nerlandy Creek, Glenn searched for Isabel, called the police and the park rangers. By 6:15 a.m., the rangers, in a small boat, began searching for the woman. About 2 kilometers from where she had disappeared, they found a large saltwater crocodile. Greg Ryan, one of the rangers, said they approached the animal, and when they got closer, they noticed a small human figure. It was Isabel. He went on to say that the crocodile swam near the boat with the victim's body in its mouth. The rangers killed the crocodile and recovered the parts of her body that were still there. The crocodile was 4.6 meters long and weighed about 500 kilograms. The investigation into the young woman's death revealed that, among many injuries, her cause of death was drowning. Shortly after, the German diplomatic representative in Darwin accompanied Valerie von Jordan to the Darwin airport, where, inconsolable, she boarded a flight back to Germany. In November 2013, in New South Wales, Australia, Zach Young was a talented and well-known surfer. A member of a local church, he was very active in the community. At just 19 years old, he was already volunteering in schools and helping homeless people. Skilled in the sport, Zach had won several surfing competitions over the years. He was a capable and promising athlete. Recently, Zach had earned his driver's license and wanted to make the most of it. He then contacted his friends and made plans to travel together to surf. Skeeterker Jillian and Shadden Schrader were also set for a small journey. On November 30th, the guys traveled to Campbell's Beach, still in New South Wales. Campbell's Beach is a beautiful beach, perfect for relaxing and having fun. It is also great for various water activities, especially surfing. However, this beach is along the coast of the Pacific Ocean. Records of the ocean are scarce because much of it is extremely deep. And when these waters reach Campbell's, they can bring large animals and predators. Locals say that the beach is heavily populated by sharks, but surprisingly, attacks are rare. The most common species found are the great white shark, the hammerhead, and the tiger shark. The teenagers didn't take long to reach Campbell's Beach on the central north coast of New South Wales. That day seemed like it was going to be an incredible Saturday. However, none of the young men were prepared for what was about to happen. As soon as they arrived, they went straight into the water. They then headed toward the well, a popular reef. Around 2 p.m., Zach, carefree, was happily enjoying the afternoon in the water with his friends, unaware of the danger lurking ever closer. Suddenly, sharp teeth appeared and sank into Zach's legs, tearing through them. The boy screamed loudly. His friends quickly rushed to his aid. They tried to scare the shark away and free their friend. Amazingly, it worked. For a brief moment, the animal released the boy. The three boys didn't waste the opportunity and quickly grabbed Zach. They carried him away from the beast, but he was still not safe. The friends had to swim for about 15 minutes to reach the beach, knowing the shark could be circling below them while they escaped. Adrenaline surged through their bodies, making them swim even faster. The brave boys managed to survive and bring Zach back to shore. The shark did not attempt another attack. Unfortunately, all their efforts were not enough. Zach was severely injured. As he bled on the sand, he gathered his strength and managed to say his final words. Looking at his friends, he said, "I love you." Zach lost too much blood, suffered a cardiac arrest, and died on the beach. The boys, unable to believe they had just lost their friend, performed CPR until help arrived. Lindsay, one of the boys, saw the animal and said he believed it was a tiger shark. Apparently, Zach Young lost both of his legs during the attack. Soon after the incident, several beaches around Campbell's were closed. Authorities began patrolling the waters in an attempt to find the animal. Tourists were warned not to enter the beaches. A shark biologist traveled to the site to study the attack pattern and identify the correct species. A detailed analysis of Zach's injuries was also conducted. The width of the shark's jaw was compared to 5 main species of sharks in the area. Eventually, it was confirmed that the culprit of the cruel attack was indeed a tiger shark, about 3 meters long. Family and friends gathered at Port Macquarie High School the morning after the attack to pay tribute to the young surfer. Zach's brother, Michael, held back tears as he described Zach's strong character. The search for the shark responsible continued, but the Young family did not want the animal killed. They understood the nature of the tragedy and did not seek any form of killing or revenge. A few days later, hundreds of surfers, family members, friends, and members of the young man's church community gathered at Town Beach in Port Macquarie. There they paid their last respects. They formed a circle in the water and observed a minute of silence. Thousands of people also used Facebook to talk about their loss and share photos. Although the attack was one of the scariest experiences a group of teenagers could face, all the young people returned to surfing. In November 2023, 10 years after Zach's death, his father, Kevin Young, organized an event to honor his son's memory. He said, "It's the 10th anniversary of my son's passing, but this is for all surfers around the world, bodyboarders, or anyone, to celebrate the ocean, each other, and the community." Here we are again, 10 years later, telling Zach's story.